Benjamin Netanyahu's trip to Washington was anything but routine. Amid growing fears that Iran could target senior Israeli leaders, Netanyahu quietly slipped out of Israel under an extraordinary security operation, abandoning the country's main international airport and taking off from a military airbase in what reports describe as a precaution against a possible Iranian missile or drone attack. According to Israel's N12 news site, security officials advised that Netanyahu's departure be kept under strict secrecy after intelligence suggested Iran was intensifying efforts to target Israeli officials. Instead of departing from Ben Gurion Airport, the Prime Minister boarded the government aircraft Wing of Zion at Nevatim Air Base. His departure time was withheld from the public, and confirmation of the flight came only after the aircraft was already airborne. Netanyahu also broke with tradition by barring journalists from traveling on the taxpayer-funded aircraft, with no official explanation given for the move. Just minutes before departing, Netanyahu released a video statement saying Iran would be the top priority during his talks with U.S. President Donald Trump.
אני בדרכי לוושינגטון לפגישה עם ידידנו נשיא ארצות הברית דונלד טראמפ. זו הפגישה השמינית שלי איתו מאז שהוא נבחר לנשיא בקדנציה השנייה שלו. יותר מכל מנהיג בינלאומי אחר, זו זכות גדולה, אבל זו גם אחריות גדולה. מניסיוני כראש הממשלה, צריך לפעול בזמנים המורכבים האלה גם בנחישות גדולה וגם בתבונה גדולה. אנחנו נדון בכל הנושאים שעל הפרק, בראשם איראן, וכמובן שהמטרה שלנו היא לשמור על ביטחוננו, וגם להרחיב את מעגל השלום סביבנו. אני יוצא לשליחות הזאת עם מטרה אחת ברורה, להבטיח את ביטחונה, עוצמתה ועתידה של מדינת ישראל היקרה שלנו. ואני יוצא גם למטרה נוספת, לחלוק כבוד אחרון לידידנו, ידיד אמת שלי ושל מדינת ישראל, לינזי גרם, מגדולי ידידיה של מדינת ישראל בכל הזמנים. ואני בטוח שבעניין הזה אני מייצג גם אתכם, אזרחי ישראל.
Netanyahu's visit comes during a temporary lull in hostilities following 13 days of escalating conflict between the United States and Iran. The Pentagon suspended its bombing campaign late last week, and no U.S. strikes were reported over the weekend. Trump hosted Netanyahu in Washington on Tuesday, where Iran dominated the agenda. The leaders also discussed expanding the Abraham Accords, with Trump continuing to push for Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel. A source familiar with the meeting told the Jerusalem Post that the discussions were very positive and said the chemistry between the two leaders was evident throughout the talks. Their previous White House meeting in February came before the latest round of fighting, during which Netanyahu reportedly urged the United States to take a more direct military role against Iran. The visit also carries symbolic significance. Netanyahu attended a memorial service for late Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, whom he described as one of Israel's greatest friends. The heightened security surrounding Netanyahu's departure reflects broader concerns inside Israel. According to reports, Sunday's Israeli cabinet meeting was moved from the Prime Minister's office to an undisclosed underground location because of potential security threats. Beyond Iran, Netanyahu and Trump also discussed wider regional developments. Israel's security cabinet recently approved the limited deployment of an international stabilization force into Gaza as part of a U.S.-backed proposal for the territory. However, key elements of the plan remain stalled as Hamas continues to reject disarmament demands, and Israel has yet to approve several reconstruction measures. Discussions also touched on Lebanon, where Lebanese troops have begun deploying to parts of the south following Israeli withdrawals under a U.S.-mediated arrangement aimed at reducing Hezbollah's military presence. Against that backdrop, Netanyahu's secretive escape from Israel underscores just how seriously the threat from Iran is now being treated at the highest levels of the Israeli government. A brief but tense exchange between the Israeli and Ukrainian leaders has sparked intense speculation, with many questioning whether the on-camera interaction reflected deeper strains behind the scenes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky came face-to-face in Washington, D.C. during the memorial service for U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. It was a rare encounter, and every second of it was closely watched. The footage appears to show a tense exchange between the two leaders. Zelensky can be seen listening intently while Netanyahu speaks. Neither leader revealed what was discussed. There was no official readout of the conversation. What appeared to be an awkward encounter has now become one of the most talked about moments from the memorial service. The meeting carried added significance because of the man they had gathered to honor. Senator Lindsey Graham was one of Israel's strongest supporters in Washington. He was also one of the most outspoken critics of Iran. Just a day before his death, Graham had met Zelensky in Kyiv. He was also pushing a Senate bill aimed at tightening sanctions on Russia. Against that backdrop, Netanyahu and Zelensky's unexpected interaction has drawn even greater attention. The last time the two leaders spoke publicly was in January 2025. Their last in-person meeting took place nearly 2 years earlier, in September 2023. Meanwhile, there were reports that both sides were trying to arrange a formal meeting in Washington. According to the Times of Israel, the idea was explored but never finalized. Israeli newspaper Haaretz, citing two sources, reported that Netanyahu ultimately declined to hold a formal meeting, but even that account is disputed. One Ukrainian source claimed Netanyahu's office initially proposed the meeting. After Kyiv accepted, there was no further response. Israeli officials later reportedly cited scheduling constraints. Another source, familiar with the matter, told Haaretz that it was Zelensky's office that first reached out, and that the Israeli side never responded. Neither government has officially commented on the conflicting reports. What is confirmed is that both leaders separately met U.S. President Donald Trump separately at the White House before attending the memorial service. Soon after, Israel appeared to extend an olive branch. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar held talks with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha and invited him to visit Israel. Sa'ar said the two discussed common security challenges, including what he described as the threat posed by Iran. Writing on X, Sa'ar said Israel and Ukraine are friends, adding that he looked forward to expanding cooperation, including new education centers in Ukrainian hospitals. Sybiha accepted the invitation. He also said he briefed his Israeli counterpart on what he described as Russia's escalating attacks on civilian shipping in the Black Sea, warning that the conflict threatens global food security, including supplies destined for Israel. The diplomatic outreach comes as relations between Israel and Ukraine remain complicated. Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion in 2022, Israel has tried to balance its support for Ukraine with its need to preserve working ties with Russia. Earlier this year, Zelensky publicly suggested that Netanyahu had maintained a cautious and largely neutral approach to the war. Ukraine has repeatedly sought to acquire Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, but Israel has declined, citing broader strategic considerations. Kyiv also offered to share its experience in countering Iran-designed drones, an offer that never translated into deeper military cooperation. Yet, despite their differences, Israel and Ukraine share one major strategic concern: Iran. Tehran remains one of Russia's closest military partners, while both Ukraine and Israel increasingly view Iranian military capabilities as a growing threat.